האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Good evening, Erev Tov, Dobre V'Yetcher. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parshas Bo. And before we begin, we're going to do Os Yud Ches, section 18. Before we begin, let's take a look at two psukim from the Parsha. The first pasuk comes from Perek Yud Beis pasuk Vav, and it's talking about the fact that Moshe gave the people instructions about the Korban Pesach, how to do the Korban Pesach offering in Mitzrayim. And he said, first step is to take a lamb, a 1-year-old lamb, on the 10th day of Nisan. And then after that, it says this pasuk, V'hoyo lachem lemishmeres, and you should keep this lamb safe. You should guard this lamb ad arba osar yom, until the 14th day la chodesh hazeh of this month, meaning to the 14th day of Nisan. V'shochatu oso, and then it should be slaughtered. Kol kahal adas Yisrael, all of the congregation of the assembly of the Yisrael, of the Jewish people, bein ha'arboyim, in the afternoon. So the Korban Pesach was kept from the 10th day of Nisan until the 14th day of Nisan, and it was guarded and protected to make sure it didn't get a blemish. And then it was slaughtered on the 14th day of Nisan in the afternoon. And of course, it was eaten, was consumed that night, which was the beginning of the 15th day of Nisan, which we celebrate as the beginning of the holiday of Pesach. So from this pasuk, Chazal learn, as we'll see when we begin the Zera Shimshon piece, that when the Korban Pesach is brought, all the people should be divided into 3 groups, because the pasuk uses the words kahal, congregation, adas, assembly, and Yisrael, the Bnei Yisrael. And it's unusual that it uses all 3 of those terms. So Chazal say it's to teach us that when the people slaughter the Korban Pesach, they should do it in 3. They should be divided up into 3 groups, and they should sacrifice separately in those 3 groups. That's the first pasuk. Now, the next pasuk is from later in the Parsha. This is also Perek Yud Beis pasuk Lamed Aleph, and this is Paro's response to the plague of the striking of the Makas Bechoros, the killing of the firstborn. Vayikra leMoshe u'Aaron, and Paro called to Moshe and to Aaron, Laila, at night. Vayomer, and he said, Kumu, rise up, Tze'u, go out, mitoch ami, from among my people. Gam atem, also you, Gam b'nei Yisrael, also the children of Israel. Ulechu, and go, ivdu es Hashem, serve Hashem kedaberchem, as you have spoken. So this is Paro finally cracking and breaking and saying, time to leave. Moshe, Aaron, take your people and leave Mitzrayim. Those are the 2 psukim. Now let's look at Zera Shimshon, Os Yud Ches, section 18. Psachim Perek Hey B'Yerushalmi. If we look in the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Palestinian or the Jerusalem Talmud, in the tractate of Psachim in the 5th chapter, it says an amazing thing. It says as follows: Nitan koach b'kolo shel Moshe. Moshe's voice was given the power. V'hoyakolo holech b'chol Mitzrayim, and his voice could be heard around all of the land of Mitzrayim. Umehoya omer, what did Moshe say with this miraculously powerful voice that Hashem gave him so that he could be heard all around the land of Mitzrayim? What did he say? Mimakum ploni ad makum ploni kat achas. From such and such a place until such and such a place, all the Jews in that area are considered one group. Mishum deha Pesach nishchat b'sholosh kitos, because the Korban Pesach needed to be sacrificed in 3 groups. So this means that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to tell all of the Jewish people to sacrifice at 3 different times. He wanted to have a group 1 sacrifice first, and then a group 2, and then a group 3, just like we mentioned from the teaching of Chazal about Kahal Adas Yisrael. Those 3 words teach us the people bringing the korban, sacrificing the korban Pesach, should do it. Slaughtering the animal should be done at 3 different groups, one after another. So Moshe had to call out and say, all of the Jews in this area are going to be group 1. They're going to slaughter the animal for their korban Pesach first. Then I'm going to call out for group 2 to slaughter, and all of the people who are in from this point to this point, this area and this region to this area, are going to slaughter next. And then the 3rd and final group would slaughter at the end. And in order to accomplish this, Moshe's voice had to be miraculously empowered so that everyone could hear him all around Eretz Mitzrayim, wherever the Jewish people were. Omar Rabbi Levi, the Yerushalmi, the Gemara Yerushalmi Psachim continues. Rabbi Levi said, Kishem shenitan koach b'kolo shel Moshe, just like Moshe's voice was strengthened miraculously, kach nitan koach b'kolo shel Paro, so too Paro's voice was strengthened miraculously. V'hayakolo holech b'chol Eretz Mitzrayim, and his voice could extend to be heard all around the land of Mitzrayim. V'haya Omer, and Paro said, and these are the words from the second pasuk that we looked at, Humu tzu'u mitoch ami, rise up and go out from among my people. Paro said that in such a loud voice that it could be heard all around Mitzrayim. Then Paro continued, L'she'avar, in the past, Heyisem avodai, you Jewish people, you were my slaves. Achshav atem avdei Hashem, but now you are servants of Hashem. You are leaving my servitude. You are no longer my servants and my slaves. You are now servants of Hashem. Ba'osa Shah, at that moment, Amru, the Jewish people said, Hallelu avdei Hashem, give praise, you servants of Hashem. Velo avdei Paro. And what they meant was, we are now avdei Hashem, we are not avdei Paro, we are no longer slaves of Paro. Adkan Lishono, until here is a quote from the Yerushalmi and Meseches Psachim. So if we take this excerpt from the Gemara at face value, it's telling us about a miracle, about a double miracle, according to at least Rabbi Levi. The first miracle is that Moshe's voice was empowered so that he could divide up all the people, all the Jewish people, into 3 groups wherever they were located. They could hear him all around Mitzrayim, and have them sacrifice their korban Pesach in Mitzrayim in 3 different groups. And according to Rabbi Levi, just like Moshe's voice was empowered, Paro's voice was empowered, so that everyone would hear him say, rise up and leave my land. You're no longer my slaves. You are now the servants exclusively of Hashem. Next paragraph. Makshem al zeh ha-meforshim. The commentators ask on this, Dema ba Rabbi Levi l'soretz b'devorav. What was Rabbi Levi coming to answer with his words? Meaning, what problem did Rabbi Levi have in the psukim that would lead him to say, to posit that Paro's voice was also empowered so that the Bnei Yisrael could hear him all around the land of Mitzrayim? What issue, what concern, what reason, what cause was there for Rabbi Levi to say this? Umat tzorech l'nez zeh. Also, what was the need for this miracle? Shekolo shel Paro yelech, that the voice of Paro should be able to go b'chol machaneh Yisrael, throughout the camp of Yisrael, throughout the places where the Jewish people live. Why was that necessary? We understand why it was necessary for Moshe's voice to be empowered, so that he could divide everyone up into the 3 groups and let them know when to sacrifice their korban Pesach. That was actually halachically necessary. It needed to happen based on the teaching of Chazal that the korban Pesach should be sacrificed in 3 groups, one after another. But what necessity was there for Paro's voice to be heard among all the people? Next paragraph. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, The Kosav HaTosfos Yom Tov, the commentator, the well-known, the famous commentary on the Mishnah called Tosfos Yom Tov, Beperek Testi Psachim, on the 9th chapter of Maseches Psachim, Mishnah Hey, on the 5th Mishnah in the 9th chapter, Dibor Hamaschil, in the section that begins Ufesach Doros Nohe Kol Shiva. In that section, here is a quote from the Tosfos Yom Tov. Ve'im Tomar, if you ask a question, Sholosh Kitos Shenishchat Pesach Doros, the three groups that offer the Korban Pesach for all future generations, meaning after Mitzrayim. We know Chazal teach that the Korban Pesach needed to be brought in three groups. How do you find that happened when Bnei Yisrael was still in Mitzrayim? So the Tosfos Yom Tov asked a question and says, okay, we see there's a halacha that when the Korban Pesach was sacrificed, let's say in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, or in future years after the Jews left Mitzrayim, it had to be done in three groups. Why don't we find that same law, or where do we find that same idea when Bnei Yisrael was still in Mitzrayim? The first time that there was a Korban Pesach. V'ra'isi b'Yerushalmi, and so the Tosfos Yom Tov says, I saw in the Gemara Yerushalmi, shenitan koach b'kolo shel Moshe, that Moshe's voice was given special power, special amplitude, v'hayakolo holech, and his voice would go throughout the land. Mimakum ploni ad makum, from this specific place. Now we're moving up to the top of the second column. Ad makum ploni kas achas, from this place to this place. That's the first group. Hare, behold, the Av Pesach Mitzrayim haya b'shalosh kitos. So we see from that statement in the Yerushalmi that even when Bnei Yisrael had the first sacrifice of the Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim, they did it in three groups, Ad Kan Lishono, until here is a quote from the Tosfos Yom Tov. So very nice. The Tosfos Yom Tov sees the same Yerushalmi that we started with in the first paragraph, and teaches us that we see that the Korban Pesach was sacrificed in three groups, even in Mitzrayim. V'hiksha hakol haramaz, and the Sefer Hakol Haramaz asks a question. De'im hayu chayavim lehecholek b'shalosh kitos, if in Mitzrayim the Jewish people were obligated to divide up into these three groups when they slaughtered the Korban Pesach, lama lo limdum bekach mitachila. Why didn't Moshe teach them about this law from the beginning? Kishahodiyam kol chukas Pesach, as he made known to them all of the laws that had to do with the statute of the Korban Pesach. V'lama himtin ad osa shoha. Why did he wait until they were actually sacrificing to be able to divide them, to tell them to divide into the three groups? Lismoch al hanes, and Moshe relied on a miracle. Sheyiyeh kolo holech, that his voice would extend to wherever the people were located, however far away they were, and they could hear him divide them into these three groups for the purpose of sacrificing the Korban Pesach. So this is a very incisive, sharp question. In other words, once we learn in the Yerushalmi, as we saw in the first paragraph of this piece, and as the Tosfos Yom Tov repeated to us, that even in Mitzrayim, not just afterwards, but even in Mitzrayim, when there was, of course, no temple, there was no Beis HaMikdash, even there was no location for everyone to come to bring the Korban Pesach, nonetheless, the same law applied, that they had to divide into three groups. So if this is true, the Kol HaRamaz asked, well, Moshe was very meticulous and very careful, understandably so, to teach Bnei Yisrael all the details, all the laws, all the specifications about bringing the Korban Pesach. Of course, naturally, Moshe wanted to make absolutely sure that the Korban Pesach was brought properly, appropriately, and correctly by every family and every person who was slaughtering it. So why didn't Moshe tell them from the beginning, I'm going to divide you into three groups? before the 14th, and before it comes time to slaughter the animals, everyone will know their group, and everyone should know that you sacrifice when your group sacrifices. Why didn't Moshe let them know that? Why did Moshe wait until it was actually time for them to sacrifice their offerings? V'yesh lomar, next paragraph. And we can say, K'moshe tirgem Yonasan ben Uziel. We can say that we need to follow here the translation of Yonasan ben Uziel, but pasuk on the pasuk, V'esa eschem al kanfei nisharim. And I will take you, I will lift you on eagle's wings. So on that pasuk where Hashem says to the Jewish people, I'm going to carry you on eagle's wings, Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says as follows, Ve'ovilis yaschon, and I will bring you la'asar beis makdosha, to the site of the Beis HaMikdash, lemebad tamon, to do their pischa, the korban pesach. So Yonasan ben Uziel doesn't translate the pasuk the way we do. If we look at our Chumash, the way we translate that pasuk and understand the pasuk is that Hashem is speaking metaphorically and saying, I'm going to bring you out of Mitzrayim as if you're on eagle's wings, because I'm going to be protecting you the way an eagle protects its young, and I'm going to protect you from all threats and bring you to me, to Har Sinai. But Yonasan ben Uziel in his Targum, in his translation of the Chumash into Aramaic, he translates the words to refer to the fact that Hashem said to Bnei Yisrael, I'm going to bring you, when it's time to bring your Korban Pesach, I'm going to bring you to Eretz Yisrael, to the site of the Beis HaMikdash, so you can bring your Korban Pesach for the first time in the best possible location, at the site of the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Ve'im kain, and if so, if that's what actually happened, if the Jewish people were miraculously taken out of Mitzrayim and brought to the site of the Beis HaMikdash, and that's where they sacrificed the Korban Pesach, if that's what happened, mitachila, from the beginning, hayasover Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom, then Moshe Rabbeinu thought, the ein chiyuv hachiluk l'shalosh kitos. Moshe Rabbeinu thought, when he was giving his instructions to the people about bringing the Korban Pesach and Mitzrayim, he thought, I don't need to tell them about the three groups, because that law doesn't apply here in Mitzrayim. It only applies, let me read it again, the ein chiyuv hachiluk l'shalosh kitos ela b'mikdash dafka. The separation into three groups, that requirement only applies in the future, when they're going to be offering the Korban Pesach at the Beis HaMikdash. That's what Moshe thought, so it didn't apply, so he didn't teach them about the three groups. But when Moshe saw Hashem rotza leholicham sham mamish, when Moshe perceived that Hashem was going to miraculously bring everyone, all of the people, to Eretz Yisrael to bring their Korban Pesach for this the first time, Oz nasan b'kolo kol oz. Then Hashem gave Moshe this miraculously powerful voice, so that he could tell all the people, you're about to bring the Korban Pesach and to site of the Beis HaMikdash, kind of unexpectedly for everyone. Hold on tight. We're going to the Beis HaMikdash, so everyone needs to now know. Now you need to know about the law of the three groups, and so Moshe had to be able to explain that to everyone before Hashem miraculously transferred them to the site of the Beis HaMikdash. Next paragraph. V'hinei kaim alon, and behold, we hold in our halacha, in Jewish law, you can see in the parentheses, this is a quote from the Shulchan Aruch, we hold, de eved de borach michutz la'aretz, a servant who flees his master, who lives outside of the land of Israel. So here we're talking about an eved, a servant who is living outside of the land of Israel with his master, and he flees the master, and he comes to the land of Israel. Yotza lecherus, he must go free. V'chofen es rabo, and we compel his master, lichtov lo get shichror, to write for him a document of emancipation. So this is a very interesting halacha, which tells us that if a slave runs away and escapes to the land of Israel, and his master is not planning to come to Eretz Yisrael, then we don't take the slave and return him to his master. Instead, we tell the master, you have to free this slave in order that he can remain in Eretz Yisrael. And the master has to write a get shichror, a document of emancipation, of freedom. Ume'ata, and from now, shehutzrich Moshe laharim kolo. Now that we learned that Moshe had to raise his voice, bishvil shehakodesh baruch hu holicham le'eretz Yisrael, because Hashem decided to bring all of the people to Eretz Yisrael. Im kain, if so, hayu yecholim Yisrael, the Jewish people should have been able, top of the next page on the right, Lomar, to say, Hoil shebanu le'eretz Yisrael, since we have now come and arrived in the land of Eretz Yisrael miraculously, Hare anu mishuchrorim, we are freed. We are free according to the halacha, according to the law, where we can't be forced to go back to Mitzrayim and to go back to slavery. We made it to Eretz Yisrael, so we're freed. Ve'ein anu rotzim lachzor leMitzrayim, and we do not wish to return to Mitzrayim. Ve'hakodesh baruch hu rotze sheyachzeru sham. But Hashem had a different plan. Hashem wanted them to return to Mitzrayim achar achilas haPesach, after they ate the Korban Pesach. So according to this teaching in the Yonasan ben Uziel, in the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, Hashem's plan was bring them to Eretz Yisrael to sacrifice the Korban Pesach and to eat it there, and then miraculously bring them back to Eretz Mitzrayim, to the land of Mitzrayim, so that they would be back there and could experience Yetzias Mitzrayim, could experience the proper exodus from Egypt. Kedei, in order, why did Hashem do all of this? In order, sheparo yishalchem, that Paro should send them out, machmas hayad hachazaka shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of the strong hand of Hashem. Hashem had originally said to Moshe, Paro is going to refuse to send out the people, but I'm going to use my strong hand and my signs and my plagues, and then that will force Paro to send the Jewish people out. So we see that was Hashem's plan. So in order to do that, he had to bring the people back from Eretz Yisrael. V'od rotze sheyachzeru sham kedei, and also Hashem wanted them to return to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem wanted them to return from Eretz Yisrael after the Korban Pesach to come back to Mitzrayim, kedei sheyikablu hashichror me'es Paro, in order that they would receive their freedom from Paro. That was a critical step in Hashem's plan, that Paro should actually free them, not that they should become freed because Hashem miraculously took them out of Egypt all of a sudden and had them appear at the side of the Beis HaMikdash. It had to be Paro freeing them and sending them out. And this freedom that Paro gave them came when he said to them, Kumu tzu'u, rise up and go out. Umishum hachi, next paragraph. Umishum hachi hayitzarech sheyishma'u kulam zeh hashichror. Because of this, all of them needed to hear Paro make this statement of emancipation. In order that every member of Bnei Yisrael would know why Hashem brought them back to Mitzrayim. Even though they had already gone out to freedom, when they went to Eretz Yisrael. So Bnei Yisrael very reasonably would be pretty upset and disturbed that they were taken out of Mitzrayim and suddenly landed in Eretz Yisrael and were able to slaughter their Korban Pesach and eat it there. And then we're suddenly told, okay, now we're going back to Mitzrayim and back to Paro's servitude, back to your land of suffering and slavery. But, so therefore, because they would feel that way, Hashem wanted them to experience for themselves the moment when Paro broke and Paro said, I can't take it anymore, and I'm sending you out and I'm giving you your freedom. Now you are not my servants anymore. You are only servants of Hashem. Umishum hachi amar Rabbi Levi. And it's because of this that Rabbi Levi said, Keshem shenitan koach bekolo shel Moshe, just like Moshe's voice was given miraculous power, v'chulei, etc. Kach nitan koach bekolo shel Paro. Paro's voice had to be given miraculous power. The ilav hachi, because if it wasn't, hayu yicholim Yisrael lehisraim kenizkar le'el, then the Jewish people would have been very angry and complained and have been upset, as we've explained above. So the Jewish people had to hear from Paro his contrition and his broken heart, so to speak, and most importantly, have to hear his words of, you are not my slaves anymore, you are not my avodim, you are only avodim to Hashem. And once they could only all hear that if Paro's voice was similarly magnified the way that Moshe Rabbeinu's voice had been magnified. We're going to stop here. In the next few paragraphs, the Zera Shimshon delves into the Kabbalistic significance of the three groups. Why were there three groups and what did they symbolize? And that becomes extremely arcane and not really possible to understand for people who are not students of Kabbalah, which I am not. So we will stop here, but the Zera Shimshon, even just stopping here, has brought really amazing sources and amazing information to us about what went on at the time of the Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yasher Koach for learning together in the Zera Shimshon this week, and we look forward to learning again together, God willing, in the Zera Shimshon next week.